Hi, everyone. So what I'm going to talk about actually is sort of a simple concept, but it really has to do with a fundamental question, which is all the stuff that we're doing, IPv6 and 8K deployment and 4G to 5G and everything else that's going on, it's all great, but why are we doing it? And why should anyone care? So to put it another way, what I'd like to talk about is the fundamental question as to the business and societal and cultural and other strategic impacts of IT and telecoms very broadly. So without further ado, as Stefan mentioned, I did write a book called Cloudonomics, which was very quantitative. And in that, I go over a variety of things involving cost optimization and performance optimization, and there's a mix of trig and statistics and calculus to help determine those optimal points. And as I was writing it, I realized that I was dedicating basically the entire book to something that, in a way, was missing the point, which is that cloud computing is not just about cost optimization or reduction or even business agility. It has much greater value when we think about it strategically. And just to give you a quick example, you've got companies like Google and Facebook and Amazon.com and eBay and so forth that are inherently cloud-centric businesses, and they've created this market cap of literally trillions of dollars, cash pool of over $100 billion, as we heard yesterday or the day before. And so there's something going on there beyond saving people money. Now, there's a pretty well-known book in the industry that basically is based on an HBR article, and the book asks, does IT matter? And the paper actually answers it, which is IT doesn't matter. And Nick Carr's argument is that because IT has become more ubiquitous, anything that's a ubiquitous good is fundamentally a commodity, and anything that's a commodity is non-strategic, and therefore the right investment approach for something that's non-strategic is to minimize spend, right? If paper clips are not strategic to your business, then you basically farm them out to the lowest bidder because paying more is not going to benefit the business in any way. I don't agree with Carr's argument, but saying that you just don't agree with it versus providing a sound counter-argument are two different things. So what I would like to argue is that the cloud and big data and social and mobile and the Internet of Things are not just about cost optimization or better asset utilization, but fundamentally are at the core of the way that businesses can attain competitive advantage in their industries. So rather than just claim that, I went back to a famous strategy framework that Michael Tracy and Fred Wiersma came up with 2 decades ago called the Value Disciplines Framework. And some of you may remember the Harvard Business Review article, The Discipline of Market Leaders, that they then turned into this business bestseller book. And it's a great book. It's still a great read today, perfectly written, just brilliant examples and sort of a lot of tongue-in-cheek questions. But what they argue is that companies can excel in 3 ways, through a mix of a value proposition and a value-driven operating model that together create this construct called the value discipline. One is operational excellence, in other words, better processes. Another is product leadership, in other words, better products. And a third is having tighter customer relationships, which they call customer intimacy. Now, that framework, I think, is as valid today as it was 20 years ago, and it will still be valid 1,000 years from now. But obviously, things have changed with the march of technology in 2 decades. And so what I did is I've got this book that is just about in final manuscript form called Digital Disciplines, with the idea being if you take digital technology and you merge it with value disciplines, you get these digital disciplines. And so I'd like to just kind of explain the logic behind the evolution. If you consider operational excellence, it's still valid, but we can add in a concept that I call information excellence, with the idea being if operational excellence is about physical processes, today we've really got to factor in things like big data, predictive and prescriptive analytics, and so forth to be able to help leverage information better. And so in the old days, operational excellence was about things like manufacturing lines. So think about the Model T line and how the Model T, it wasn't the first car, but it was the lowest price car because of a better manufacturing process that was mass production and interchangeable parts. That transformed not just an industry, but arguably civilization as we know it, including the rise of the suburbs and so forth. But the interesting thing there is that even if you go up to the era of the Toyota production system, the idea is that process engineers would kind of sit in their offices and design processes statically based on things like bill of materials. So you do things with a manufacturing line using techniques called, for example, line of balance, where you've got the chassis coming along on this line and the engines coming along on this line and the transmissions on this line, and they're all timed so that, regardless of any differences, you resource them so that kind of all those come together so you don't have a giant, pyramid pile of transmissions and you're out of chassis, everything comes together. Now, the new world of operational excellence is much more complex, and a good example is a busy port. Tens of thousands of containers, thousands of trucks, ships that are coming in, going out, various delays, bridge closings, congestion. And so it's a real-time, NP-complete optimization problem that requires both tracking of the containers, video feeds, tracking using GPS, and sort of this global planning problem that has to be solved in real time. As another example of information excellence, Burberry is a terrific example of a company that is just in the luxury goods business, the last place you would expect to find sophisticated IT, and yet they've done a number of great things, including creating this comprehensive omni-channel retail strategy where I can do simple things like order online and then return in the store, but a lot more interesting things. Digital signs in the dressing rooms that are mirrors, and then the tag that's on the clothing item as you enter the dressing room will play a runway clip, and by the way, will say this purchase matches the prior purchases that you made because this color matches that scarf that you bought 3 years ago. So a very sophisticated way of interacting with customers. What this chart shows is they handed out iPhones at a fashion show so that everyone had an iPhone to film what was going on at their runway event. That then gets beamed into the stores for VIP events. Those stores are laid out to exactly match the website layout. So it's this seamless fusion of physical operations with digital world to create a better customer experience. If you take product leadership, there's a very simple evolution there that I've seen repeatable best practices across a variety of industries. In the old days, product leadership meant something like a really nice watch. Precision movement, gold and diamonds, so quality materials, an exclusive brand, that is what led to a product that could command premium prices. Now, though, we're getting into an era of connected devices, and the obvious evolution of a watch is to something like the Apple Watch, which is now a connected device. But there are lots of other interesting examples. For example, the Nike Hyperdunk Plus sneaker, which is replacing what used to be just a sneaker with now a sneaker that's part of a comprehensive product, service, system solution that includes the sneaker, the pressure sensors in that sneaker that then tie over a network to activity tracking capabilities in the cloud. That activity tracking then goes on to social networks, and even more interestingly, there's a hierarchy from commodities to products to services to experiences to transformations. And a simple sneaker now leads to a transformation where Nike can get into a subscription-based model rather than a one-time sale that is also focused on customer outcomes, because coaching services can come with that, so you can measure how you're doing against demographics, what you're doing wrong, how to jump higher in basketball, and so forth. Jet engines are at the other extreme, so I really encourage you to stay for the 11:30 or so keynote, which is Bill Rue from GE, who's standing right there. And GE has just done an amazing job across all of these disciplines, but a good example is the Gen X jet engine. It generates 50 megabits per flight on average. That data is then uploaded and analyzed by collaboratively between GE engineers and the customer, and the objective is a focus on business outcomes, namely maximizing time on wing, because anytime a plane is out of service, it's very costly to the airline, right? It's lower asset utilization. So that's a way of differentiating a product that used to just be based on better materials, better titanium, better servicing through this end-to-end ecosystem. Customer intimacy in the Tracy and Wiersma model was very much human mediated. So think about a butcher or a tailor that says, oh, hello, Betsy, hi, Fred, how are you? You know, welcome back, how's the family? We know you like this cut of meat, we saved you that, it's great, and that only goes so far. Now we're talking about businesses that have millions or over 1 billion customers that are trying to maximize their relationship with those customers. And so a good example of that is Netflix. And what's different here is Netflix does not have a team of people, you know, where there's one who cares about Joe Weinman and provides me personalized movie recommendations. Now the act of intimacy is no longer human-based, but algorithmic. And so the Netflix algorithms take data from your movie watching habits, your movie watching habits, your movies. And when I say habits, I'm talking about specific behaviors, like you watched on an iPad or on the family TV at 2 a.m. versus at 8 p.m., while you were in New Mexico versus in Idaho. You rewound here, you rewatched that, you stopped watching this. And so they can take all those data points and develop very unique, interesting, surprising correlations. So they will give you a mix of sort of the popular favorites, but they also want to delight you with surprises. And of course, if they recommend bad movies, they're going to lose you as a customer. If they recommend movies that you're like, wow, that was great, I love Netflix, you may have seen that they just turned in record subscriber growth yesterday evening, then they've accomplished something in terms of increasing the bond with you that makes you less likely to defect to a competitor. It's not just entertainment, but another good example is patient-specific therapies or personalized medicine. So the Mayo Clinic is an example there where they use a combination of genomic data, microbiome data, so the stuff like your intestinal flora and or skin bacteria and so forth, and also epigenetic data that again, they have this enormous repository, and they can therefore better understand how to target specific therapies and medicines to you based on not just your ailment, but also this comprehensive makeup, including how you're likely to process medicines and which doses are likely to work and so forth. So in a way, it's no different than movie recommendations, except it's, you know, obviously more life impacting, but it's the same type of algorithmic big data analytics around this comprehensive database, pulling strong inferences out of weak signals. The last thing I'll cover is the evolution of innovation, which I had to add because I didn't think that the original book covered this quite properly, because they treat innovation as being focused on products, but of course you can innovate processes or customer relationships, or even you can innovate innovation. And so the traditional sort of evolution of innovation goes from the individual tinkerer and solitary lab through the first official industrial research, which was Edison's Menlo Park lab, and then the first true industrial collaborative lab, which is GE Research. And what you find is that companies are now evolving to accelerated innovation that's mediated through IT. And good examples are what topcoder.com does, Innocentive, and companies like that, where they're setting up idea markets. They have challenges and exchanges. Bill, I don't mean to steal your thunder, but GE is such a great example. So GE has done FlightQuest 1 and 2, which are around better predicting airline arrival times and things like that, and Hospital Quest to improve the patient experience. The point there is that you have the opportunity to leverage a broad group of global experts rather than just your own internal researchers, publish big data sets to the cloud, and make it all happen. So that is that. Thank you very much. And I guess the bottom line is that what we all do in networking and IT and colo and data centers is not just mere plumbing, but is a cornerstone of today's business strategies. Thank you very much.